Good afternoon, Packers fans. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat, coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV social channels, live from Radio Row, wrapping things up here in New Orleans. Final day in the vicinity of the game. I am in town through next week, but will not be attending the game on Sunday. We'll be watching with friends and family. Hope your guys are going to be having a great time wherever you are this weekend, taking in Super Bowl 59. It has been an incredible week here on Radio Row, hanging out with folks from the Packers Radio Network, catching up with lots of old friends from around the business, people I've worked with, people I've known. This has been awesome. But I am also ready to get home. Very, very, very ready to get home. And, of course, the big Packers news overnight, Sterling Sharpe being elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Finally, I did a quick video about it earlier today. You can check that out here on the channel, but long overdue. You guys know I've talked about it forever here on Cheesehead TV regarding what is had been a monster oversight by the Hall. Great to see him in the video with him and his brother. Just, I don't know how you watch that as a human and not get at least a little emotional, if not teared up. But Super Bowl 59 coming up. The final practices have been held. Final injury reports are in. Interesting on the Eagles front, the possibility of getting Brandon Graham back. I know he's listed as questionable, but it sounds like there's a very real possibility he might be able to go, which would be pretty crazy considering how much time he's missed. But you look at these two teams, I think there's no doubt that this is going to be a defensive struggle early on in the contest, and things usually do tend to open up in the second half of these types of games in the Super Bowls where you have the two best teams, which usually means you have two really good defenses, and things are a little slow going early on. What is fascinating to me is the Eagles defense being as good as they are, clearly the number one defense in most metrics and considered the best defense by most analysts. The way they play under Vic Fangio, forcing you to take your time, make all your plays, convert, stay ahead of the sticks and things of that nature. And you usually have to utilize 9, 10, 11 plays to get into scoring position and put points on the board. That's how the Chiefs have played anyway this year. You're not really forcing them into much. They have figured out lots of different ways to move the ball down the field without chunk plays, without big, humongous, deep shots. We've certainly seen a change in that regard when it comes to the Chiefs' style of play. But the Chiefs have been efficient, and they've been very good at taking what the defense will give them. The one difference, I think, this time around, and you saw it in the Packers playoff game, this team in, the Eagles defense in particular, they certainly do play a lot of zone, but it is certainly predicated on those defensive backs knowing what they're looking at as far as route concepts, route combinations, and then flying to those receivers and getting as tight in coverage as they can. And then if the ball is caught, this is a team that does not use or let the ball carrier run after the catch very much, if at all. They are one of the hardest hitting units in the league. You certainly saw that in the Green Bay game. I do think for as great as the Chiefs have been, especially in close games, they are the best situational team. I think you don't think that's crazy to say. Any kind of, you talk about red zone, you're talking about third down, any situational aspect of football, they are the cream of the crop. But with that said, I am taking the Eagles in this game simply because I think their lines will prevail, both their offensive line and specifically the waves up front on defense. I do think the Chiefs will obviously move the ball and score points, and it will go into the fourth quarter, a somewhat close game, but give me the Eagles 27-20 in what will start as probably a little bit of a frustrating watch with a lot of maybe not 3 and outs, but some drives that end frustratingly for the offenses. And I do think Hurts and that Eagles offense will be able to move the ball, though they will have to run the ball to be successful. I don't think this is a game that Hurts is going to win with his arm, but I think they will be able to against the Chiefs. And I know everyone's going to be picking the Chiefs, and that's certainly been the prevailing sentiment here on Radio Row and around town this week. But I like the Eagles simply because I think they have the better lines on both sides of the ball. That's me. Your mileage may vary. Hope you're all doing well. Good to see everybody mixing it up. Before we get going, we got to give a shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. You just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com, use code CHTV, spend $5 on lineups, and get $50 instantly. PrizePicks is available in 43 different states, most importantly, including Wisconsin. And here you go, my final lineup for the season on PrizePicks. I think Travis Kelce will clearly have a number of receptions, but I believe, especially because of the Fangio defense, they will not be big chunks. Give me Kelce under 62.5 receiving yards. Jalen Hurts, as I mentioned, he's going to be utilizing his legs a lot in this game. I think he definitely gets in the end zone at some point. I talked a lot about the lines and the Eagles having the advantage there, and I think that is true overall. But I also think Chris Jones is a game wrecker. He is going to get at least 1 sack, probably at some point lined up on Becton, who he'll most likely be able to take advantage of. And finally, Nolan Smith has just been a monster in the postseason, getting after the quarterback. I think he's going to have a sack as well for the Eagles up front on Sunday. There you go. Make sure you use the link in the description of this video. Get your prize pick lineups in for Sunday. Use code CHTV and send them to me. I want to see your Super Bowl prize picks lineups. What's going on, folks? Jeff Smith starting us off. What's up, Jeff? You know it's me. I need dinner recommendations, bar, club recommendations. Oh, we went to, what was the name of the restaurant? Sarah took me to, she said, everyone's going to tell you about Antoine's. Don't go to Antoine's. That's the tourist place. Go here. It's the second oldest restaurant in the city, which had Thai. It starts with a T. And we walked over there, but I can't remember. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll send it to you, Jeff. But it was excellent. I had Gulffish, and it was pretty damn amazing. And then we went to the Carousel Bar, and there was a jazz band playing Louis Prima, and it was divine. It was a lot of fun. Joey, what's going on, man? Next Packer in the hall, Devin Funchess. I kid. Hey, man, Devin Funchess, Packers legend. Love to see it. William James, how are you, man? Thanks for the super chat. Happy for Sterling. He was first Moss-like receiver. Sad for Mike. Once Ray Rhodes got hired, it felt like a different team. Pretty sure Favre would have got 2 or won one more Super Bowl if Holmgren stayed. Yeah, I agree. I do not doubt that for a second. If he hadn't gotten that itch of wanting to run his own shop and be the GM, I think that, and plus it kind of not always, but often gets short shrift. But I also think, much like Devontae Adams, he wanted to get back home. He wanted to be out west again. I can't kill the man for it, but I do think, if he had stuck around, they get to at least one more Super Bowl with Mike and Brett. I do not doubt that for a moment. Joe, what's going on, man? Eagles are stronger in the trenches, but the Chiefs are so good in close games. I get the feeling the Eagles need a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter to win. And the one thing I agree, and that's what I'm talking about when I say situational. I mean, close games, end of game. I mean, look how they utilized Mahomes' legs against the Bills to basically salt that one away. I very much agree with you, and I do think the key component, the thing I didn't even mention, which I forgot to mention, is the Eagles' ability to create turnovers. Something they've done all year long to even the best offenses that they've faced. I won't be surprised, and I know the Chiefs are very good at taking care of the football, but seems like the Eagles get at least one every single game. And I don't think Sunday will be much different in that regard. And that should give the Eagles an extra possession to put some space, so to speak, on the scoreboard. Mike Witt, how are you, man? Hey, Nags, as happy as I am for Sterling, I am equally disappointed in Mike not getting in. The fact that Cowher is in already before Mike is a joke. What's funny is I have often kind of thought that about the Cowher thing, and I always thought, I'm just a jaded Packers fan, but that is a oft-repeated phrase that I've heard this week as I've been talking to people about Holmgren being up for the Hall of Fame. I've had more than a handful of people unprompted say, well, I mean, Bill Cowher's in. How is Mike not in? I mean, the fact that Cowher's in before both Holmgren and Shanahan is kind of crazy to me, but and that's not to take anything away from Cowher. I think he was a really good coach, but man, yeah, Holmgren not being in is, I'm not going to say it's upsetting, but it's unfortunate. And how are you? Thanks for the super chat. First Green Bay Packers game I ever went to was versus the 49ers in 1990, a Sterling Sharpe, Jerry Rice catch-off in Lambeau Field. Congrats. Oh, man, what a contest. What a day. What a phenomenal back and forth those teams had back in the early 90s. Good times, good times. And I'm jealous you were at that game. Marshall Duke, thanks for the super chat, man. I liken the Jacobs comments to the Mike Daniels slap some people comment years ago. Do you think it will divide or galvanize the locker room? Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think it's going to do much to the locker room. I think everyone knows Josh is allowed to have his opinions and he's voicing those. And some of the guys, maybe most of the guys, will agree with him. But ultimately, they also know that is not their job. Putting the team together is Gutekunst's job. And look, if Gutekunst wasn't like kowtowing to or taking direction from Aaron Rodgers when it came to building a roster, you really think he's going to pay attention to Josh Jacobs? I mean, it's not to say that Josh isn't allowed to have his opinion. He is. I just think a lot of it is just really good fodder for us on the outside. I think more often than not, a lot of that is just noise, and it's not really prevalent in the locker room. Amy, how are you? Books Airbnb in Dublin. I've heard a lot of conflicting things about this today because I know the Steelers and the NFL officially announced the fact that they will be playing in Ireland next season. And I had heard, and there was that Sports Illustrated report, that the Packers would be the team traveling to face the Steelers, who they do play on the road this year. But I did hear something today that kind of threw a monkey in the wrench in the works, so to speak. I would characterize it as I really don't think the Packers want to go. And that doesn't mean they won't. Doesn't mean the league won't compel them to head to Dublin. But yeah, I'm putting odds at 50-50 right now. We'll see. Nothing's official. That I can tell you. Ed, how are you, man? So happy for Sterling. I know the human factor will always be there, but if it's a stats-driven club, so many players should be in there that are not. Well, yeah, and the problem is that oftentimes those arguments come down to people quoting numbers, right? And you can certainly look at production, and people will be able to kind of discern who was productive, who did what. There are certainly aspects of the game that can't be captured by numbers, and that's why you want people who were there to kind of opine on it and talk about it. That's why when you hear guys, or when you used to hear guys like Bart Starr kind of go to bat for somewhat forgotten guys on the Lombardi rosters, like those are words that should be, at least given consideration and some weight, right? But yeah, it's very much maybe not completely devolved to stats and not numerical accomplishments, but it certainly does drive the conversation. Mike Witt, think the Packers do anything for Sterling next year like they did for Butler and Woodson? It has been since '94 since Sterling was green and gold. Well, they'll put his name will go on the facade. That is going to happen 100%. What I love is probably going to be right next to Brett. So, yeah, that will certainly happen. As far as a ceremony with him in attendance, I hope so. I should certainly hope so. I don't know any reason there wouldn't be. I know there in his time in Green Bay, he certainly had a prickly relationship with the local media, but I think he's in good standing and good relations with the team itself. So yeah, I hope so. I would love to have, a game where they do the halftime ceremony and unveil it and all that. That would be phenomenal. Klaus, how are you, man? I wouldn't mind Sharpe and Reggie White in prime on next year's roster. Oh, God, you think, right? Imagine if Sharpe had just been able to stay healthy for their run to the Super Bowl with Reggie and Brett and all that and Leroy and that whole crew. Imagine how dominant that team would have been. I mean, as dominant as we were in '96. Think about how dynastic they would have been if Sterling had stayed healthy. It's insane, man. Ryan, how are you, man? Do you think Holmgren will get in now that they're going to smaller classes? I think he will eventually, and that has been the prevailing sentiment by most people I've spoken with here. Some of them who are Hall of Fame voters. But, the change in how they are doing the voting, I think will certainly cause more log jams, and I do think it's going to be a while. But I think most people understand, have a good kind of handle on his accomplishments and importance. I do think it's going to happen eventually, but again, like you say, he may have to wait a bit. Cheeto, how are you? Hoping the refs don't over officiate and that the Eagles practice how to sack the quarterback. Well, that is the thing, right? Like Mahomes, the old school, maybe not old school, but the kind of modern actually adage of even if you can't get a guy on the ground, just make sure you pressure him and get him off the spot. Well, that doesn't really apply to Mahomes. Like with Mahomes, you got to get him on the ground. Because hell, you just look at that touchdown he threw in the AFC Championship game where he's falling down and he still throws a strike into the end zone for a touchdown. You know, like pressure doesn't matter to Mahomes. Like you have got to make sure you get him on the ground. And the one hope for the Eagles is that, you know, Mahomes has taken more sacks this year than he has pretty much at any other point in his career. So there's certainly a case to be made that the Eagles should be able to get to him and fluster him at least a little bit. Amy, how are you? Another drink on me for possibly just saving me thousands of dollars. I'm here for you, Amy. I'm here for you. I'm just saying, hold off. I know there's been rumblings of it happening, and I think I even saw a floated rumored date, like in the calendar. But I'm just saying it's far from a done deal at this point. Joe, thanks again, man. I was at the game in snowy Milwaukee when Sterling dropped the ball just short of the end zone before recovering for the score. Strange but cool memory. I'm glad you brought that up. If you go back and watch it, I think people have kind of forgotten what happened there. If he knows where the goal line is, he stretches his hand. He nonchalantly moves his arm out to put the ball over the goal line, right? And then gets hit, and then he realizes, and then he gets the ball and gets into the end zone. But he was like being a showboat essentially, but he like, if you go back and watch it, in his left hand, he's got the ball and he moves it out over the line specifically so he scores a touchdown. But that is a classic moment. Mike Witt, how are you, man? Since he's not coaching this year, let's put Mike McCarthy in the Packers Hall of Fame. I think it's a bit early yet. Bit early. His time will come. It'll happen. Mr. Tundra, think Sterling will be at the draft in Green Bay? Crowd will go nuts. Oh, I have a million trillion dollar hope that he will be, but I'm sure the Packers will ask him, but I don't know. Maybe. Let's put him down for a solid maybe. That would be dope, though. Jeff, how are you, man? My free agent wish list: Mac, MVS, Godwin, assuming he is healthy. No draft picks given. Won't break the bank. Right in Goody's wheelhouse. I'm glad you said MVS because I think he's a hell of a lot more realistic than a Devontae Adams reunion. And I think he would really help them in obvious ways as far as being able to take the top off the defense and being one hell of a blocker in the run game, which we know Matt LaFleur wants these guys on the outside to be. And Jeff, thanks again. You know me, food seen in Ireland, not good. Been there, done that. I won't be asking for recommendations. Hey, man, all I need is you point me to the Guinness. That's all I really care about. Cheeto, how are you, man? Oh, yeah, I was going to surprise my something for her 40th to a Packers Ireland trip and buy you a Guinness. I'll wait for the schedule to come out. Yes, wait for the schedule. It should arrive sooner rather than later. I love that everyone's so jones to get to Ireland. I think that would be awesome. I really want it to happen. But like I said, I think it's sitting at 50-50 at this point. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to get going a little bit early today. I'm sorry, but I have a couple other media obligations that I have to fulfill. But I really, really appreciate each and every one of you hanging out, talking Packers each and every day, especially this week. It's been a lot of fun here in New Orleans. Like I said, though, I am ready to get home. Thank you, everybody. Please hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and then tell your friends and tell your family. Cheesehead TV, we are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great weekend. Go Pack, go.